with another $25 million in ad buys. The new cash infusion comes just 3 days after TV and radio ad spending surpassed, get this, $605 million by groups supporting presidential candidates, not affiliated with the campaigns. That's including super PACs. Joining me now is columnist for Roll Call, Stu Rothenberg, also, of course, editor of the Rothenberg Political Report. Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, these latest polls show President Obama opening a lead over Mitt Romney in some key swing states. Is that a sign that ads are having an impact? What do you read into these numbers?
No, I don't think it's the ads at all, Chris, frankly. I know we spent a lot of time looking at ads and talking about ads and the amount of money being spent on outside groups. But this race has moved over the past 2 weeks, initially starting with, I think, the Democratic convention, when the Democrats were much more successful than I expected or anybody else expected, I think, in convincing a slim but very important sliver of the electorate that the president deserved 4 more years to try to turn the economy around, that the situation he inherited was so bad, so bleak, much worse than we all thought, that he's done enough to deserve a second term, even though he hasn't taken the economy to where he hoped it would be. That was now followed up over the last week or so by news and comments. And so you had the attacks in Libya and Egypt. You had the Romney response, immediately a response that was regarded as too fast and too political. And now you've had this discussion on the 47%. Look, the reason that the public has moved is events, circumstances, news, and comments, not TV ads.
You know, it is interesting, and you write about this in your latest article, which is titled "In Politics, Expect the Unexpected." You talk about the conventions, and you write this: while the GOP convention played to form, there was no bump, no remaking of the contest. The Democratic convention produced something significant. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I think we should emphasize this was unexpected. Most of the analysis going into the convention, certainly from me, from Chuck Todd, who I hold in the highest regard, is that there's already been so much campaigning, so much advertising, that 3 days of scripted events wouldn't move any voters. So the fact that looking back now, I think the Democratic convention was significant is worth noting. I think the Democrats just had better speeches, better speakers, and a more coherent, better delivered message. And it was, as I suggested, well, let's just take Bill Clinton's comment. Even I could not have turned this economy around this quickly, he said. I think that was really the successful message for the Democrats. It's not that the Republicans had a bad convention. I think they were hurt by the fact that they lost the first day and they had to squish the first 2 days together, and Chris Christie's speech was more about Chris Christie rather than Mitt Romney. But really it was the Democratic message was tighter and cleaner. They had better speakers, and I really do think they convinced just a sliver of the electorate. That's all they needed to convince that the president deserved 4 more years to complete what he had started.
Let me ask you about some crystal ball viewing. There's a new article in the scholarly journal, PS Political Science and Politics. It focuses on 20 eminent political scientists. 8 of their 13 forecasting models reveal a close race, but predict President Obama will win the popular vote. Of course, a lot can happen between now and Election Day. We saw the news taking over in the last week or so. But how much weight do you put in studies like this at this point?
So unfortunately or fortunately, I was trained as a political scientist. I taught political science at Bucknell University before I went into the business I'm in now, which is kind of the political handicapping. I keep an eye on what political scientists say and do and what their models show. But I remember too many models in the past that predicted one thing and something else happened. I remember I came down to Washington in 1980, and one of the first stories I had to write was about a Connecticut congressional district, and I called David Mayhew, a very famous political scientist at Yale, to get his opinion on the congressional race, and was clear after I got off the phone he knew a lot about political science, but he didn't know a lot about that congressional district, which was the district that Yale was in. Look, some political scientists are quite astute at this. They're cautious. They understand the abilities of models and limits of models. Others just think every number matters. To me, you know, it's part of what I look at, but I also look at the polls, private polls that frankly, that I am getting to see that aren't released publicly. And I look at certain numbers and surveys that I think other people ignore. and they tell me that there has been a shift in the race, and yes, I now put a thumb on the scale, maybe two thumbs, for the president. Mitt Romney needs to change the trajectory of this election if he's going to have a chance to win. Otherwise, if it continues on its current path, the president's going to be reelected to a second term.
Stu Rothenberg, it's fascinating talking with you as always. Thanks so much for coming on.